The Creamery check said 3.1. The tester on her kitchen table said 4.6, and the tester had her father's initials scratched into its walnut lid. Same cans, same cows, same week, and somewhere along the 9 miles between her milk house and the Creamery dock, 1.5 points of butterfat had simply stopped existing. 7 months later, on a raw October morning in 1961, a widow named Ruth Mueller stood in the gravel yard of a dead cream station at the crossroads 4 miles from her farm and bid against nobody. She was 45, lean from work, sandy hair tied back under a scarf, a denim jacket over a plaid shirt. The money rode in an envelope in the jacket pocket. The receiver's man read the legal notice off a clipboard, fast, like a man with 3 more sales to hold before supper. Behind him, the station sat shuttered, built in 1907, closed since 1959, windows gray with dust, boiler cold. 24 men had driven over to watch the scale and the copper go for scrap. Opening bid, the receiver's man said. Anyone, $600, Ruth said, for the whole of it. Building, boiler, separator, scale, and the glass on the bench. A feed store man laughed out loud. That's scrap and spiders, Ruth. Then I have overpaid for spiders. The receiver's man looked around the yard once, twice, and found nothing but grins. Sold. $600 to Mrs. Mueller. Somebody clapped. Slow. The kind of clapping that is not applause. She signed on the fender of her truck, counted out the insurance money her husband had left her in 1957, and drove home in time for evening milking. By dark, half the county agreed the widow had finally cracked. The reason she had not cracked had a date on it. It was March of that same year, and it fit on a kitchen table. The March milk check came to $291, and stapled to it was the stub, and on the stub, in purple ink, the test. 3.1. Ruth milked 18 Guernseys on a farm her father had cleared. 9 miles out of Clear Lake, in Polk County, Wisconsin, 18 cows, close to 500 pounds of milk a day. Cans cooled overnight and set out for the Creamery's flat truck 6 mornings a week. The check was the whole of her cash. The test was the whole of her check. And Guernseys do not test 3.1. Her father had said so all his life. He had said so the year he bought the herd's grandmothers, and he had said so while he cranked the little machine he ordered from a mail-order house in Chicago in 1935 for $10. Butter breed, he said. Poor man's cream. She took the tester down from the closet shelf where it had waited since he died in 1954. Walnut case, hand crank, a rack of small glass bottles with graduated necks, a pipette, a brown jug of acid from the drugstore. She measured milk from the night's cans, added the acid, whirled the crank until her arm ached, topped the bottles with hot water, and read the fat column at the neck, warm, against the window light, exactly as her father had taught her. 4.6. She ran it again the next morning on fresh cans. 4.6. She did not call the Creamery. She did not tell a neighbor. A woman farming alone learns the price of a complaint that cannot be proved, and Ruth Mueller had been quiet so long the quiet had come to look like a virtue. She put the tester back on the shelf and told herself the fault was likely her own. Old acid. A worn crank, something. The May check came with the cows on the best grass of the year, and the stub read 3.2. She ran her father's glass that same evening. 4.6, then the second bottle 4.7. She set both bottles on the windowsill and sat looking at them until the barn lights of the next farm went out. Emil Gunderson had hauled the cream route out of Clear Lake for 40 years, 1919 to 1959, horses first, then a chain-drive truck, then a flathead Ford he babied like a heifer. When the Creamery went over to whole milk hauling and shut the country stations, his contract went with them. Now he farmed his 80 acres by the creek and drove the county roads slow. Feed store cap pushed back, elbow out the window, seeing everything. In June, he stopped where she wrestled cans onto the stand and got down to help without being asked. The stub lay on the seat of her truck where she had thrown it. Old men read upside down better than anybody. 3.2, Emil said. Off Guernseys. Feeds thin, Ruth said, which was not true, and he knew it, and she knew he knew it. Whose glass says so? She stood there with a can in her hands. Then, because she had been quiet since March and the quiet had gotten heavy, she said it. Mine says 4.6. Whose glass is yours? My father's. 1935. Emil took off his cap and studied the barn roof for a moment. Run it while I watch, he said. I got nowhere to be till supper. In the kitchen, he knelt at the instrument the way a man kneels at a workbench, not a pew. He turned each bottle against the light, checked the graduations with his thumbnail, sniffed the acid jug, worked the crank and listened to it. Whatever he was hunting, he did not find it, and that seemed to satisfy him. She ran the test start to finish. He watched her hands the whole time and never once corrected them. The column came up clean. 4.6. Your cows aren't lying, Emil said. Your glass isn't lying. Glass never lies. It just gets read by men. Then somebody in town is reading it wrong. Not wrong. He tapped his breast pocket, where a fat little notebook rode behind a pencil stub. There's exactly one way to make good milk read poor without watering the can, and it's not done to the milk at all. Then, what's it done to? Emil corked her acid jug, careful as a chemist, and looked out the window at the road for a long moment. Thursday's pickup day, he said. Follow your cans to town. Stand at the receiving window and watch the bench. Don't watch the man. And don't say my name inside that building. If you've made it this far into a story about 2 numbers on a paper stub, you're the kind of listener who checks the arithmetic twice, so subscribe before the next pickup, because every county has a bench like this one, and most of them have never once been watched. Thursday, she followed her cans to town. The receiving window gave onto a long room of steam and rattling steel, and at the end of it, at a black slate bench, worked the fieldman and tester. Vernon Kessler, he was 40, pressed gray jacket, creased cap, the only crisp man in the building, and he was fast. Pipette, bottle, acid, into the whirling machine, out, a squint, a number in the book. Next, she watched for an hour and saw nothing she could name, and that was the trouble. It all looked like science while it was robbing her. 2 things she carried home without knowing why she carried them. Between batches, the filled bottles stood in the cool draft by the north window before he read them, and the whirling machine never seemed to run as long as her arm remembered the crank running. She marked neither thing out loud. It was a licensed bench. Let me price the difference, because on a stub it looks like nothing at all. 500 pounds of milk a day at a true 4.6 is 23 pounds of butterfat. Paid at 3.1, it is 15.5. The gap is 7.5 pounds of butterfat every day, and butterfat that year brought 62 cents a pound. $4.65 a day. Call it $140 a month, near $1,700 a year. In a country where a good hired man cost $100 a month and found, somebody was farming Ruth Mueller's land without ever opening a gate. Through June and into July, she and Emil ran her father's glass against every pickup. Her columns read 4.5 to 4.7, fat and steady. The stubs read 3.0 to 3.2. Emil wrote every pair in the little notebook, dated, in a hauler's careful hand, and said nothing about what else was written in it. The first week of July, Kessler's sedan came up her drive, and he got out with a clipboard and the manners of a funeral home man. Mrs. Mueller. The plant flagged your cans. Test's been running thin. My cows are on the best grass in the township. Guernseys fade in heat. Feed runs thin, fat runs thin. It's science, ma'am. Then science can watch me run a Babcock on my own kitchen table. Kessler smiled the polite, unhurried smile of a man holding the only pencil that counts. Kitchen glass, he said. The state licenses testers for a reason. I'll flag your cans for a plant retest. Nothing personal in it. The plant retest came back 3.1, initialed at the bench. So she pressed. She drove to the Creamery on a Thursday in the middle of July with the walnut case on the seat beside her, and she carried it up onto the receiving dock, cans crowding the platform, the crumpled stub in her fist. She set the case on a milk can, lifted out the glass tester, and held it toward Kessler at chest height, and the dock went quiet along its whole length. Run one can, she said. Any can on this dock. Your acid, my glass, side by side, and the drivers for witnesses. Licensed equipment only on a licensed dock, Kessler said. State law. I don't write it. I keep it. Then run the same can twice on your own bench. Out here, on the platform, where the men can see the columns. The bench is certified in January and July, Mrs. Mueller. You're welcome to read the certificates in the office. I'd rather read the fat. He never raised his voice. That was his skill. He had a certificate on a wall. She had a widow's kitchen and a dead man's crank, and the whole room knew the arithmetic of that before a word more landed. The board pays me to protect this pool from bad tests, Kessler said. Whose bad tests? She said, and for one full breath, with the steam hissing and the cans ringing, nobody in that long room said anything at all. The manager came out of the office wiping his glasses and stood beside Kessler, which answered the question its own way. The following Monday, the flat truck slowed at her stand and did not stop. Tucked in the milkhouse door was a printed slip on Creamery letterhead, her name written in careful purple ink. Cans suspended from the dock, it said. Quality grounds, it said, pending review. It named no date for the review. 18 cows came fresh into the barn that evening, the same as every evening. A 1/4 ton of milk with the dew still on the cans, and no place on this earth to pour it. That week she fed milk to the hogs and the calves until they stood off their feed. She churned in the kitchen and peddled butter at back doors in town, and lost money on every pound once the gas was counted. Neighbors were kind at church and careful in the yard. One of them finally set it straight, gently, looking at his boots. We've got cans on that dock too, Ruth. Emil came at dusk and sat on the porch step with the notebook in his pocket and never took it out. She asked him straight what he knew and how he knew it. Not yet, he said. The day you own a bench, I'll empty this pocket onto it. Not before. Nobody owns a bench but the Creamery. Not quite nobody, Emil said, and would say no more. She found it herself, 10 days later, in the weekly paper, 3 lines of small type among the legal notices. By order of the receiver for a defunct produce company, the cream station at the crossroads would be offered at public sale in October, with boiler, separator, platform scale, and testing bench. As is. Where is? She read the notice twice, and that Friday 2 letters went to Madison in her mailbox. The first asked a seat at the state tester's licensing examination. The second she told no one about, not even Emil. In September, she sat the examination at the courthouse in Balsam Lake, with her father's manual gone soft at the corners. And in October, a license came back with the state seal on it and her name typed plain. The same week, the receiver's man set up his clipboard in a gravel yard, and a feed store man made his joke about spiders. and $600 came out of an envelope onto the fender of a truck. The bidding has already been told. What has not been told is what came after the yard emptied. They scrubbed the station out with lye, the two of them, evenings after milking. Emil fired the boiler slow to find its leaks and trued the separator bearings by ear. The county sealer drove out, weighed the platform scale against his cast masters, and hung his lead seal on it. She washed 40 years of dust off the bench glass and set her father's walnut case at the end of it. Open over the receiving window, she painted the rules on a board, plain as a feed sign. Any patron may watch his own test run. Columns read warm. The glass is anyone's to check. Then she put a notice in the same weekly that had carried the receiver's legals. The station would open the first Saturday of November, and any farmer who doubted any stub from any dock could bring 1 can and watch his milk tested before his eyes, free, her bench against his paper. Opening morning came on gray and cold, and the truck started down the Crossroads Road before full light, and by 7 the gravel held 40 farmers and their cans. And on the platform, the acid carboy lay cracked open at its base, tipped against the wall. The sulfuric drained down through the gravel, with its sharp smell riding the cold air. The padlock has hung whole. No window was broken. Whoever had done it understood exactly what a Babcock test cannot run without, and understood the drugstore would not open till Monday. 40 farmers, milk on the trucks, and not an ounce of acid on the place. Emil backed his truck to the dock and pulled the tarp off the bed. Under it sat a case of certified test bottles packed in straw, a spare pipette rolled in flannel, and a carboy of acid, full, its seal unbroken. And the notebook. "You kept acid," Ruth said. "I kept everything." He set the carboy down like an egg crate. In '59, I asked Vernon Kessler one question in front of the manager. I asked why the whole route ran thinner from the year he took the bench. 1957. Rain or no rain, feed or no feed. 60 days later, the hauling went to a younger man. He put the notebook in her hand. 40 years of route weights and tests. Every farm, every season. From a fired hauler, that's a grudge. On a licensed bench, it's evidence. I've been waiting 2 years for this, Doc. The retest ran all morning. Cans swung up onto the certified scale, and she ran the columns against the south windows. Warm, license framed on the wall beside the sealer's certificate. A Holstein man whose stub said 3.4 read 3.8. His brother, ticketed all spring at 3.5, read 3.9. A Guernsey man from the far end of the route, paid on 3.3 since thaw, read 4.4, and had to lean against the doorframe. Emil called each number out level. No more triumph in it than a man reading off a rain gauge. Kessler's sedan came into the yard at 11 with the manager's car behind it, and Kessler came up the steps with his folder of certificates and defended the bench out loud, to the yard as much as to her. Warm glass flatters fat. Any licensed man will say so. Her columns ride high because she reads them hot. Dr. Babcock wrote the heat into the method in 1890, Ruth said. The column is read warm because the fat is read whole. It's on the state examination. I sat it in September. Then her acids mixed strong. Sealed by the state, Vernon, Emil said. Pick a can. Any can in this yard, and we'll run it your way and mine, and the yard can watch which one of us needs the window. They ran 1 can, 2 bottles, in front of 40 farmers. The first bottle got the full count of turns in the hot water, and read, warm, 4.6. The second bottle Emil whirled short, half the turns, and stood in the cold draft at the north end of the dock for 20 minutes, and it read 3.2. He held the pair up against the light, side by side, one fat column tall and honest, One squat and starved. Short whirl, cold read, Emil said. The fat never all comes up, and what does come up shrinks in the cold. Nothing done to the milk, nothing in the can. It's done to the reading, and it's worth 1.5 points to whoever holds the pencil. That, Kessler said, is an accusation. It's arithmetic, Ruth said. The state can decide what to call it. The quiet man at the porch rail in the brown-town suit chose that moment to come forward and introduced himself with the full name of the State Dairy and Food Commission, and said her second letter to Madison had been read with interest, and asked Kessler, pleasantly, whether the plant's test ledgers were kept at the office. An old Holstein man called from beside his can. Certify mine again. Vernon. Right here. There sits the can. And Kessler did not touch the can. 40 farmers watched him not touch it, and that was the whole trial, and everybody knew it. The Root farmers met at the schoolhouse in November, lamps lit, cans still on the trucks outside. The vote to send their milk across her scale ran through the room like water finding a grade. One old man stood against it, hat in his hands. The Creamery carried my note in 33 when nobody else in this county would. Then stay with them, Ruth said, and check your stub on my glass any Thursday, free. Loyalty is no fault. I'm only against the pencil. He kept his cans where his note had been carried, and came every Thursday with his stub, and nobody thought less of him. And his stubs, it should be said, were suddenly honest. Because by December the Creamery had posted richer tests across the whole route. Every farm at once, which was its own kind of confession. There was a new man at the slate bench before Christmas. The old fieldman was said to be selling feed 2 counties east. Nobody threw him a supper. Her books that first full season, 1962, showed 61 patrons by June, skim hauled home for calves and hogs, sweet cream grated and cooled and sold at her posted test. And then, one iron gray morning a week before the second Christmas, a panel truck with the Creamery's name on the door came down the Crossroads Road early, turned in at the station, backed square against her dock, and sat there idling. The man who climbed down was the Creamery's own butter maker, purchase book in hand. You know what I'm here for, he said. Cream, I'd guess. The Roots voted. The churns don't care about politics. I'm short 30 cans of sweet cream a week, and the board sent me to ask your terms. Posted over the window, Ruth said. Same terms as any patron. My scale, my glass, and the test runs where the seller can watch it. At whose test? At Dr. Babcock's, she said. The same one Madison has been handing this state since 1890. It was never the test that was crooked. He took off his hat, bent to the glass, and watched his first purchase run from pipette to column. Then he bought at her posted number, and he came back every week after, that winter and the next, and the farmers in line watched the Creamery's own truck take on cream over her scale, and understood that something in the county had been set back level. The station cost $600 at a receiver's sale. Scrap price, spiders included. Its first season it cleared $2,000 even. Its second season, 1963, it cleared $2,800, 3 cents a pound of butterfat over a certified scale. The farm's best year, with her husband alive and the farmall he bought new in 1948 under him, had been $2,300. The check and the glass now agreed to the 1/10 of a point because they had become the same glass. Her father paid $10 for a tester in 1935. It turned out to be the most expensive glass the Creamery ever let a farmer keep. On the last Saturday of that second season, Emil came up the steps carrying the scuffed leather case that had ridden beside him on the route since before the roads were graded. His own tester. His father had bought it in 96, the first year the drugstore stocked the acid, and the bottlenecks were worn soft from 60 years of thumbs. He set it on her bench and slid it across. "Every honest bench ought to carry a second glass," he said. "So the first one always has a witness. If it had been your cans on that dock, with the stub in one fist and your father's glass in the other, would you have kept hauling and taken the check, or bought the dead station and posted your own test? One road is quieter, and only the other one ends with the Creamery's truck backing up to your dock. Down at the crossroads, the boiler is warm, the columns read true, and the morning trucks are already lining up on the gravel. Rest easy."